and God. You don't have to get on this gateway from worship team to audience and then to God. There's no gateway from worship team to audience. You don't have to say, okay, if we get through the audience and we really get them riled up and we do a really awesome jam session with the Lord, and Manny's freaking shredding that guitar, and Evan's over there belting out, and Logan's just sweating up a storm. We don't need that. We just need this connection with God. It's not horizontal, it's vertical. You don't have to go through anything to get to God. There's no security to get to God. So those are the three things I just want to make clear is not what worship is. However, the three ingredients of worship that I fundamentally think make it up is, the first one is sacrifice. And I think one thing that I found was so crazy, but the Hebrew word, I'm going to butcher this, is hiskound, and it means to prostrate oneself. This right here is prostrating yourself. You are getting on your knees, you are putting your hands and your head on the floor. And it seems weird, obviously, like you're just sitting right here. But I want you to examine what's happening here. This is a form of surrender. This is a physical representation of surrendering to God. And if you see what happens for just momentarily when you put yourself in this position, you are letting your head just momentarily lower from your heart, meaning your heart is raising above your head. And that has a little bit of layers to it. But first I want to say that there's so many layers to this because, for one, we are letting God's place of residency, our heart, keep with me, be lifted above our heads and all that we think could happen and all that we believe to be true, so we're putting on hold to receive the call of our Father. Secondly, we are saying, I might not know what the outcome will be. I might not know whether I'll be okay tomorrow or what will happen when I get home or how this will play out. But all I know is that putting my mind and my heart and my everything into God is my best bet. That is what all I have to do to live my life is surrender all my unknowns and knowns to the Father who loves me. We are giving up what our mind has perceived as true for the ultimatum that in the hands of God our lives are at their peak. That is again what worship, true worship, is trying to accomplish. Anybody with me? Yeah? Okay. That is again what true worship is trying to accomplish, because we are lifting our hands in surrender and awaiting the embrace of peace that comes with entrusting our souls and our everything in the hands of God. So, what does that have to do with sacrifice? Kind of nothing. So, here's what actual sacrifice is, but I just thought that was kind of a cool tidbit, a little sprinkle on everything I'm about to douse on you guys. Worship is sacrifice because in the same way that the Bible times people would sacrifice burnt offerings to the Lord. Like, that was the thing that Isaac was taking place of. He was taking place of a lamb or a cow or a bird or whatever. And the thing is, to them, the greatest thing they had to offer them was their workplace, their materials, their resources. They had cows, they had goats, and that's pretty much it. They didn't have all the complexities of awkwardness and social standards and iPhones and relationships. They seriously had like 3 goals, and that was make babies, get food, get Jesus. Put that on a t-shirt. I swear it'll sell at Lifeway. See, like I said, they didn't have the complexities of social boundaries and awkwardness. It's like, in the modern day, all of our comforts and luxuries, we have so many more things to offer God. We have so much more that we can sacrifice. We can sacrifice our pride, comfortability, finances, time, jobs, how we look, what we do, what we eat. Did you know that you can sacrifice what you eat? It's called fasting, obviously. I don't need to, define things. Not a dictionary, whatever. But you realize you can give sugar to God? How many of you could give up, Frappuccinos and lattes and Starbucks and stuff? Because that's legit. If you could give that up, that's legitimate. That's a legit sacrifice to God. Do you know how much it would say to live like Daniel did and only eat fruits and vegetables, no bread and meat and all that, just fruits and vegetables? And for one, it's not like just eating fruits and vegetables here. It's eating take all the processing out of food, take out all of the GMO and all whatever the frick they put in food nowadays, hydrogenated oil. They take all that stuff out and amplify it by like 1 billion because they live in that palace with the most bougie, luxurious food known to mankind in this time zone. I'm talking like fine-cut steaks and lamb chops. We're talking about Krispy Kremes loaded with cocaine. We've got juices, wines, and cocktails all imported from Mars. And they restrict themselves to vegetables and fruits. Do you know? Not Takis. Vegetables and fruits. Yes, okay. Like, how much a man of a woman do you have to be to tell God, I sacrifice the pleasure of food as a symbol of how I love and I crave you more than any Kentucky Fried Chicken could ever stir up inside of me? And you're like, yeah, that's good, that's great, yeah. What about music? What about movies? What about TV? What about video games? Here's a hot take. What about Netflix? What about saying God's more important than the I'm still watching button on Netflix? What about telling God he's more important than all these things we hold higher than him? Because the act of fasting and sacrificing these things is not because God is selfish and wants to take away all your happiness and doesn't want you to have the things that you like. It's because he's trying to make us realize that we love these things more than we love him. Who do you love more? The one you stay up late in the night, keep pressing the up next button until freaking 4 in the morning? Or the guy who is only reserved for Sunday nights and Wednesday nights? Other way around. Okay, let me repeat that. Who is more important to you? The person you spend up in the late wee hours of the night who's more important? The one you spend all your time and all these long nights thinking about and sticking your earbuds in your ears and walking down the hallways and listening to, and you can't stop thinking about how you can insert into a conversation because you love talking about him so much, or the guy that you can't even talk about with your friends from church. Because I can be real here. I don't feel comfortable always talking about the people I meet from church. And that's pretty much my only friends because I'm homeschooled. But besides the point, but seriously, like I, myself, don't feel comfortable talking about God in his own house. I'm sitting in God's house. It's like, okay, what if I went to my friend's Ava's house, and I was sitting there, and I was like, yo, what's up? Saturn. And I'm just talking to Saturn, and I never even acknowledge the fact that she's in the room. And where's God's place of residency? Is it in the church? No, it's right here. He's constantly with you, and we always just acknowledge the fact that he's here. So who do you love more? That person who you don't acknowledge, or the person you're staying up late night watching and in your earbuds? And I'm not saying that stuff is bad. Is technology and phones and entertainment, is that bad? No, it's not. Is possibly giving that up for something greater necessary and maybe healthy? Definitely. I definitely think that there's no greater way to worship than sacrifice what you think you can't to God. You see, myself, let me look at this. So, I myself, one of the hardest struggles for me to give up is to give up my appearance. And I'm not just talking about clothes and like how I look. That's fashion. That's a wholly different subject to talk about for a while because I like to talk and not necessarily because I really like fashion. But I am so self-conscious about how I look when I'm worshiping. I'm so self-conscious about how I'm singing. And I'm trying to formulate this little persona of me that is right on the line between not weird and just sold out Christian. I'm trying to look like I'm sold out, but without looking too weird or pushing too many boundaries or making people uncomfortable or making myself uncomfortable, because that's really the only reason. Because I don't really care if everybody's looking at me. Sometimes I'll think, oh, I'm humble because I just don't want people to look at me, and that's why I'm not giving my all to God. But that's not why I'm not doing it. It's because I don't want to sacrifice my pride. And I realize that's a sense of pride. And what it took to give that up, which I still have, that's like a daily burden that I have to give up. But I had to find, like I said, the worst things in the world is worshiping, and the worst part of that is singing. I hate singing in front of other people. I hate the whole dancing thing. It's so bad. If I had to not do one thing, it would be singing. I would just sit in the back and never do it again. But when I'm at home alone, I will sing and dance my heart out. I will freaking foot loose on this freaking floor if no one's in here. For Jesus. I will say, this is for you, God. Got to get foot loose for Jesus. But I come back, and someone walks inside the room, and I turn around, run into the closet, maybe whisper sing for God. Maybe I'll raise my hands and just, Jesus, reckless love, oh, the reckless love of Jesus. And I'll be in a different room, and I won't even talk to them, no matter how close I am to them. And I had to finally, one day, there was this thing that kept popping up in my head. Every time I went to worship on Sundays, God kept bringing this lyric to a song. It was from So Will I by Hillsong. And it says, in one of the lines it says, if the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. And to me, that was just a really powerful song, this lyric, when I've heard it the first time. And it was really easy to cry out when everybody else was crying out. And the band was playing and everything was playing really loud. But then I felt like that lyric just kept pumping in my head. And I just kept realizing this is something God wants me to do. And he kept saying, come on, you got to do this. And each week I would be like, yes, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it. And I'm like, and I didn't. And then I'd walk back, and I'd come back, and I'd come back to it. And God keep reminding me, come on, Kyle, come on. You want to go farther? And I'm like, yes, I do, but not that much. And then finally, about a couple months ago, there was a whole worship night, one of these Sundays or Thursdays or whatever. And I show up, and I'm already feeling like he's putting that in my head. Before worship even starts, I'm hearing it. Hearing if the rocks cry out in silence, so will I, if the rocks cry out. And I keep hearing it throughout worship, and I'm just like, I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to do it. And then I'm bringing up, and I'm like, this is it. I'm going to do it. And then I freeze, and I shut down, and I'm like, I can't do this. And then the music turns back up, and I can say it as long as I want while the music's turned up, but then it turns down, and I cower back. But then at one point, I stood there, and I was like, I just want to do this, God. I want to get it over with. I'm done being afraid. I'm done doing this all the time and failing and wanting to do something but not having the courage to do it. And I looked to my right. God was like, look to your right. I looked to my right, and there's a whole row on like the front of the stage of people kneeling down, not saying anything, not raising their hands. They are just sitting here with their arms open, waiting for the presence of God. And I'm saying, and God tells me, you're not just holding yourself back, you're holding them back too. I can use you to be the catalyst for everybody's presence of God. Everybody can see the glory of God today if you lead them. Because like I said, it's not just, the worship team is not the only leaders. Because sometimes there will be something that happens in the audience, and the worship team is not able to go on until this happens. And somebody just screams out, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. And God is waiting for this to happen. But you're sitting here, I'm sitting here, saying I won't. So finally, I cried out, so will I, God. And we just went into this totally different place. And I'm not going to act like, oh, I brung this whole freaking congregation to Jesus. No, God was waiting for me to activate his presence so he could come and he could change lives. And make these new experiences with people. So sacrifice. This is fundamental ingredient of worship is sacrificing what you think you can't so God can give you what you wish you had. He's giving up what you think you can't, giving up your phone, giving up your television, giving up your pride, giving up how you look, giving up all these things so God can give you what you wish you had. And like I said, one of the things that I find baffling about God, is this happens every time, is he's like the most bizarre vending machine I've ever seen in my life. Because I will give him my feeble offerings in exchange for his promise, his glory, his direction, his everything. And not only will he give me all of that, but he'll give me back my feeble offering. It's like I get a dime, and I bring it to a vending machine full of honey buns. I insert it, and all the honey buns just fall out, and then the dime just pops back into my hand. Like, that's how God works. And I am saying that there are a lot of times that God is trying to get you to keep your addictions, your sin, your lost morals, and all that gunk, and he wants to take that and keep it for good, because that's only keeping you down, and you can't move any further without it. But there are some times that simply sacrificing what you think you can't and what is more important to you than God activates it so that God can repurpose it and give it back to you. That making any sense? Yeah? Okay. So what I've found is that he takes our passions and what we don't know and all these things that we see in ourselves and we're like, I don't know what this is. And he enlightens it and he enlarges it. So say I have a passion for science, but I also really love children. And I'm like, how do these two, how does that work? How do these two blend? I can't just love science babies. I'm not going to just sit on the television watching Einstein Kids or whatever that show is. Little Einsteins, there we go, thank you. So I can't, but then God shows up and he's like, okay, so now he's brightened it, and he's enlarged it, and I've given it to God, and he's repurposed it, so that now I know I have a love for genetics, and now I am a genetic scientist who's a celebrity scientist who's working on separating conjoined twins or whatever. And I'm like, he can do this. He can do this with all of you. You've got these passions, and we're like, I don't have any direction. Where am I supposed to go, God? What are all these things inside of me that I love? What are these passions? And God is trying to take them and enlarge them when you sacrifice them. So then he can, like I said, repurpose it, exchange it for a focused passion, a focused love and desire to help the world, basically. Because that's all we want in this life, is to help the world. And God wants to show you exactly how he meticulously designed this. He designed that passion in you, and he wants to see it unfold, and he wants to show you exactly how you fit into the world. All right? Getting anything? Okay, so here's another point that I found literally just a few hours ago when I woke up this morning, and it's worship is not spontaneous to God, it's only spontaneous to us. We say spontaneous worship, and that's literally, I've seen so many YouTube channels, and it's called Spontaneous Worship with Stephanie Gretzinger or Jeremy Riddle or all the other churches, Upper Room, any church you can think of. I've seen so many spontaneous worship. So what the thing is, it's not spontaneous. I think God is exactly aware of where and when he wants to move. I don't think he sits in heaven and he was like, oh gosh, Kyle is worshiping right now. He's giving his all. I wasn't expecting this. I guess I'll go down there and start some revivals. No, he's totally aware of what he's doing. He's totally aware of when and how he's scheduled, where he's going to perform in your life, where he's going to go, how far he wants to go. And he's just, God is not thrown off by that. He's not thrown off by our worship. He isn't unsure about how he goes about making his presence known. And the reason we call worship spontaneous is because the plans of God interfere with the plans of us. When we're being spontaneous, we're letting our plans take a back seat to what God's ultimate and divine schedule has already approved. So we're finally saying, okay, all these things that I've formed in my mind, all the things that I think I'm going, all the things I've wanted to do, I'm giving them up to God so that he can actually go somewhere beneficial, because I'm just walking down this path, I'm walking down on the separate highway, and then God's like, hey, jump on the highway of Jesus of your destiny. That's a Jeremy Camp song, I think. I'm not sure. But he's like, hey, come hop on my highway, come get in line with what I'm doing. And then we're like, okay, I guess that's spontaneity, and it's not. It's just letting your plans take a back seat, letting your plans subside, and letting God's plans be greater. Does that make you getting, yeah? All right. So, real worship, if we truly fall in line with this, we'll realize that we are only applying spontaneity to our own schedules. Real worship looks like this. We fall before the Lord, and we ask God, what do you want to do today? Father, what is your ultimate plan today? When and how do you want to move? When, how, what do you want to do? This is your hands. This is your time. You take it and you go where you want to. That's what true worship looks like. It's sacrificing your time, sacrificing what you do, it's sacrificing your abilities. So, and I think that after that comes a very important ingredient we most of the time forget we don't have, and that's patience. See, patience is such an underappreciated aspect of worship, and I think the lack of it is one of the reasons we have fewer powerful movements of God. Because I think a lot of us almost revivals start like us getting on our knees, and we raise our hands, and we're like, God, move how you want to. I don't care if I have to sit here all night. And then God's like, okay, really? Let's do this. Come on, let's do this all night. Come on, let's do this. Let's see how far you want to go. Let's see you give your time. And then we sit here and we're like, okay. And then pastor comes up to pray and worship slows down and we're like, okay, but I didn't mean all night. Let's be realistic here. Let's be reasonable. And then we're like, okay. And the thing is, I'm not saying that every move of God has to be you being in this exuberant, just all day, just hardcore, no eating, fasting, all that kind of stuff. And all of that may be what God wants you to do. It might be where you feel your heart is leading you to go, is just staking out with the Lord. But I think the point is that we need to start having the patience to wait until he actually moves like he promised. Like, it's not necessarily staking out. It's more of just waiting until we're like at the breaking point and we just have to push through. And we misunderstood what God said when he promises that we will move. Because he only promises to move as far as we are willing to go with him. That make any sense? Ring in? Okay? So he meets you where you are, but don't call it a failed promise because you didn't go through with your part of it. You have your part to play, and God is always going to play his. So just, if you give all that you have and you sacrifice that, that's another call back to sacrifice. Yeah, I'm really good at this. I feel like we're all in the parable of the workers in the vineyard, where God was representing the workers who came to God, and they all got paid the same, which was just one coin, no matter how long they worked. So some came in for the whole day, a whole 24 hours, and they still got one coin. And then others came in, and they worked for 7 hours, for 5 hours, and one came in and even worked for only 1 hour. And they all got the same. They all got one coin. And it was supposed to be this metaphor of how God is he's being gracious to the people that didn't serve their full time. And some of the workers were like, we've been working for 24 hours, and we get the same amount as these people that showed up last minute and just freaking grabbed a couple grapes. What is this? They just stomped in the grapes a couple times. We've been hurling vineyards all freaking day. And then, but God was like, I'm not being selfish and greedy to the person that gets the one coin. You deserve the one coin. That is what you worked for. That is what anyone who works here will get. You will get one coin. I'm being gracious to the person who put in only a 24th of their time. Who only deserves a 24th, I give them a full coin, because, 24th of a coin is a thing, and you can actually do that, I guess. I don't know. But I feel like we're the workers who worked there for like 24 hours, and we're pushing and we're working hard, but then we just, at like 23 hours and 59 minutes, we just give up, and we're like, I guess if God's not showing up, I guess I'll just leave then. And I'm like, no, stop. We're about to get our breakthrough. If you push just a little bit harder, you won't have gotten your reward. You won't have gotten your wages. If you just want to push a little bit harder, if you want to work your muscles just a little bit farther. Okay, so muscles, they only develop when you push yourself past what you think you can't. Because your muscles are realizing, oh, I need to develop muscle here because there's a lot of strain coming in this area a lot, so we need to develop more muscles. We need to put more creatine. You have all that's in you to create muscles, but you have to push yourself past that. And I feel like so many of us are at the breaking point, and we're like right here, and we're like, we just got to do one more rep. Literally, so many times muscles do not develop because you just don't go one more rep, and you would have developed so much more. And because we give out early. There's like people show up to the gym all the time, and they will work out. They will work out so much, and then they will stop here, and then they'll come back, and they'll do it again, and they'll stop here. And that's what we're doing as a church when we come here, and we're worshiping, and we're giving our all to God up until the very last second, and we don't have enough patience to push through and receive the glory of God. Does that make sense? Okay. So we've got to push past it. We've got to go past our limits to see the glory of God. Okay, worship is also sitting before the glory of God. Wait. Okay. We can only see the glory of God when we give him everything we have. We give up all that we have so he can give us all that he has. That's the messed up vending machine mentality of God's presence. Giving all of us so we can receive, which, keep in mind, giving all of us in human standards is nothing to someone who is eternally grateful. Take like the king of England and the queen of England. Take their worth. This is a good analogy. So if you take the worth of a king, he's not going to be compared to the same of a stump. So if you kick a stump, there's not going to be many consequences. But you kick a king or a queen, they're going to take your freaking head off. All right? So that's how God works. He's got a greater authority than a stump, except his authority is eternal. So anything that you do to God, he's eternal. You have eternal consequences. You're compromising an eternal authority, if that makes any sense. So when we give, so that's what just boggles my mind, is when we give up nothing to something eternally grateful, more powerful than any queen, any king, any overlord. We are receiving something so much greater than all of that, something greater than the power of all the universe. And I know that just sounds kind of hippie-like, but I just thought that was a really cool thing. So, worship, my second ingredient. I'm only on the second ingredient, y'all. Worship is a lifestyle. See, there's a process to being in the presence of God. Being in his presence requires daily participation of his will and his love. Everyone wants the kind of worship that comes from some sold-out church like Bethel or Hillsong, or the same experiences they got from camp or missions trips. They all want to have a worship that looks like our favorite worship pastors and our favorite artists like Stephanie Gretzinger and Joel Houston and all these people. And we want that same connection that we have with God, but we aren't willing to live the lifestyle that got them there. The reason we have so many life-changing experiences during planned events is because there was effort put in beforehand. See, like the closest I've ever felt to God was on my missions trip to El Salvador. And it was insane. It was bonkers. I had so much. And it wasn't because I just got on the first plane to Jesustown without any pre-work beforehand. I had to put so much effort into preparing for this. We had prep days for exactly how would we go about respecting the culture and the people. We had daily devotions leading up to it, and we'd go back with the fellow missionaries to talk about it. We had to raise like $1,000-something with fundraising, manual labor, and a butt ton of lawn work. So if I didn't walk out with something that was like some sort of spiritual souvenir, I was not going to do that. That wasn't an option at that point because I had put so much effort. I had put all of my cards into being in the presence of God. And that's the reason those experiences are so amazing. It's either because we go into a place where people have already prepared the atmosphere for worship and have put the effort in for establishing an atmosphere of worship, or we do it ourselves. And that's a problem with most small churches. Is we look at churches like Bethel and Hillsong and Upper Room and all these churches where we receive the glory of God and all that and whatnot, but then we aren't willing to go and live the lifestyle that those churches represent. They go in and they put all their effort in, so we have to choose to put that kind of same lifestyle. We have to trust in the process. We have to trust in the daily. We cannot just show up to church it's going to get complicated if you just live the lifestyle that you want and then you show up to church expecting worship but not expecting change. You've got to have the correct lifestyle. And we're going to have to dedicate some of our time to experiencing our Father's appearance. We don't need to just sing songs. We need to prepare a place for our bride. Every time we worship, our hearts are to be married to the love of God in holy matrimony. And it sounds, again, like just hippie crap. But listen, that's reality. That's what God describes it as. We are marrying the love of God. God is our bride. And I think we have a skewed perception of what marriage and stuff should be sometimes. So it's not necessarily what we think of marriage, but he's explaining it as a metaphor for how it's a bond between us. And we can only obtain that bond when we commit a whole lifestyle to loving him and being in his love. Because it's in powerful love, and it's bonding. It's stronger than blood, stronger than all that. The worship, that kind of worship only comes from fervent sowing that led to an abundant harvest. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again because it's really good. That kind of worship only comes from fervent sowing that led to an abundant harvest. If you turds take notes, then I'd write that down. But, all right, so see, the only point isn't to expect something, but expect him to do greater things than he did before. The times we had these Holy Spirit moments and we these amazing eye-watering crying out to God, sunshine in a frame, completely emotional experiences with God seem so out of reach sometimes. And that's because we chase what we've already known. We come in expecting what God has already done in our lives. So we want to have something that we've already experienced to be the most powerful, but God is like, I want to go so much farther than that. Our expectations can either be a box for God or a wide place. We can either say, God, I expect you to do whatever you want to in this place, or just do like what you already did last time. I'm expecting the same thing I got from camp. That's what I want. I don't want to go any further. And I don't think God's going to honor that. I think sometimes he does, which is something I don't understand. But I think if we want to get the purest, rawest form of God, we have to just let him do whatever he wants to. And I think sometimes that kind of worship comes from not necessarily us intentionally doing what we want, letting him take the reins. Like, I think sometimes we have good worship, and this is just kind of a theory or whatever, but I think sometimes, what if we are showing up to worship and we are just happen to be in the will of God? I find people like Donald Glover, someone I admire so much, who is obviously operating in the favor of God, and it's like, I feel like people like that have just found their will in God, found their favor in God, found what their passion is by chance without him, and they are just living that out, and they're living almost to what God is. They're living almost to what God called them to be. Does that make any sense? Okay, here. So take Donald Glover again. He goes out and he's living this great life, right? He goes out and everything he does, he's got this Midas touch. Everything he touches turns to gold, right? So I think that sometimes we can do that with worship. I think sometimes we can go and we can just somehow be in the will of God by just, I think that makes sense. I don't know. Let's just leave that there. I think I'm over-talking it. But anyways, God's worship only goes forward, though you may put it on hold. It takes you back to the strongest you've been if you only pick it back up. When we lose focus and fall down, we are not back to square one. We resume the destiny that we put on pause. He's like an old but close friendship that even after years of being apart, it just clicks back right when you get there. Yeah? So, third ingredient, last one. Hey, worship is being. That doesn't really make any grammatic sense, actually. But worship is being. Worship is simply just being with our Heavenly Father. It's synchrony. It's harmony. It's letting ourselves be saturated in His presence. And again, third time, sounds like hippie talk. Get one for each point. But worship should not be about how it makes us feel. It should be about being. So if worship was about how I felt, I would just sit back and wait for it to be over, because honestly, that's how I felt most of the time. Most of the time, almost every time, I feel like not singing, I feel like not dancing. I want to just sit down, freaking drink some Starbucks or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to be doing this. But I want the presence of God, and I know that that little uncomfortability will bring me there. So worship is not feeling. See, if we go into the worship with an expectation for anything else but lifting His name above ours, then we've missed the point. Because we think, I just want to feel comfortable, I just want to feel popular, I just want to feel cool, I want to feel normal. But that's not what the core of worship is. It's expressing our love for a God who is worthy of it. The problem is we get focused on trying and what's going on with me instead of what God's trying to accomplish through me. What's going on at Kyle's house? How is Kyle doing? How does Kyle feel about this? What does Kyle want to eat afterwards? How does raising my hands like this make Kyle feel? How does freaking spinning around and giving my all to God make Kyle feel? And what God has been trying to tell us since the beginning of time is that it's not about me. It's not about Kyle. It's about the unity between me and my Father. He's not trying, He still loves us, and He's not trying to say, oh, it's not about you, it's about me. He's saying, it's about us. Get it in your head. Come on. It's about the unity between us. Those claps are really convenient sometimes because I lose my place, and that's important. What God has been trying to tell you is that. Because in the end, that is all God really wants, really, is to let His kids show His love. And by the way, the worship team can come back up here and start. Oh, you guys are already here. I told them to do that with my mind. Okay, listen though. This is so important. Because at the end of the day, that's all God really wants. Is He wants to show us His love. Even with the one thing that is supposed to be completely centered around bringing up His name and making Him more important than us, all He wants to show is that God loves us. That our Father in heaven really, truly loves us. Even when we surrender our all to God in complete realizations that we are never going to be worthy, all He wants to do is know that He truly and 100% is smitten in love with us. And truly 100% smitten in love with us. He loves us so much. And that's, again, the only reason for worship. One thing, it's like that one kid that's always like, oh, why is everything always about you? That's what God is, but He's happy about it. He's like, I'm so glad it's about you. It's always been about you. And not just you, but us. It's the unity between us so that you can become bigger. You can be better. You can let this world be overcome by your presence of God that just sits on you. What if... And I just don't understand. Like, how? How can I be worthy? How can I be worthy of His presence? How can I be worthy of the glory of God? Someone so eternally better than me. Someone so eternally more complex than me. How does this make sense? God. And He's like, you just are. Love is just love. It's like freaking kindergarten. Come on. Love is just love. We don't need a reason. We don't need an explanation for love. Love is just love. And he's saying, I died on the cross and took all of your pain and sorrow that you brought upon yourself, and I would do it again, and for the only reason it needs to be because I love you. Come on. I love every fiber of your being. You're my child. And I created worship. again, for the only purpose is so that you can be with me. It's not about you. It's about us. It's about us being in unity. It's about my love in your heart, never parting for all time. You surrender all that you have, not because I want that stuff you carry around, because I want you. He wants you. He wants us. He wants this. All right, everybody stand up. Come on. Oh, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. God, please let you take this where you want to go, God. We put this in your hands. Everybody take out your hand. God, our hands are your hands. Our time is your time. We dedicate it all to you, God. We sacrifice what we think we know. We sacrifice what we know to be true, God. We sacrifice what we think we can't give up, God. Come take over us. Come take over our time. Come take over our bodies, God. Come take us, God. Let your love saturate us. Let us join and worship God for you and for only you, because you are worthy. Thank you, Jesus, for your love, for your presence, and for your glory. Amen. Let's do this.
Good in me. You are love, on display for all to see. You are light, when the darkness closes in. You are hope, you have covered all my sins. Peace when my fear is crippling. You are true, even in my wandering. You are joy, you're the reason that I sing. You are life, in you death has lost its sting. Come on, just sing to him. You know I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. You are more than my words will ever say. You are Lord, all creation will proclaim. You are here, in your presence I'm made whole. You are God, of all else I'm letting go. And oh, My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus. No, so let it be true. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. No, I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough, and nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. A light of the world, forever reign. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus. Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus. Oh, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus. Oh, and oh, I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. I think God is trying to say right now that you've been, as people who've been running to the arms of other things, running to the arms of people, running to the arms of likes on social media, running to the arms of approval. And he's just saying, run to my arms. Run to me. Nothing compares to my love. Nothing compares to me. And he's just trying to get your attention tonight. He's trying to get your attention, saying, hey, while you're off looking at the rest of the world, I am looking down on you right where you are in the middle of your situation. In the middle of your problem, in the middle of your pain. He's saying, just run to me. Just run to me. The Bible says as we draw near to him, he draws near to us. So if you run to him, he'll run to you. So we're just going to sing that again. Just run to him. And oh, I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your light of the world forever reign. I'm running to your arms. I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. The light of the world forever reign. Forever reign. Forever. Forever reign. Forever reign. You will forever reign.
Hey, I just don't feel like we're done yet. The adults next door aren't done yet. So I'm going to give us some more time. If your parents are here and you have to go, you can slip out quietly. But I feel like, and Whitney got a word earlier that she saw this vision of like an arrow just pointing up, that we are still can go higher and we can go further. Not out of a, man, I'm trying to push you and yeah, let's go. That out of a, man, God wants to take us to a higher place and do more in our hearts through this time of worship. So we're going to do one more song. And if you have to slip out before this song is over, you can. But I'm going to ask you to continue to engage. And I love what Kyle said. When you step out and do something uncomfortable, like he does not feel like worshiping half the time. But he worships like more passionately than most of us in this room. And so you're going to have to do something, even if you don't feel it. You're going to have to do something different to go to a new place in God tonight if you so desire. So can we do that together? Can we just worship one more song? And then Evan will dismiss us after this song. So let's go.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe.